Did you know over 3 crores 54 lakhs 21,987 Indians live outside India? Now, this is higher than the population of Australia, it's nearly the population of Canada, and the result is they send back $135 billion every year. Now, as we are celebrating getting these sweet dollars from abroad, we are ignoring a terrifying reality. Indians today, they run the world's biggest tech companies. They generate trillions in wealth, but for other countries. In fact, if you think $135 billion that we get every year in remittances is a lot of money, let me tell you, Indians in US alone paid $250 billion as income tax to America compared to this $135 billion that we get annually. Now, this problem of brain drain seems unsolvable for a developing country like India. But did you know China also faced a severe brain drain problem in 1990s with 90% of people going abroad and choosing to never return back for both these countries. But today, 80% of Chinese nationals come back to China compared to just 13% of Indians. So how did China not only stop its brain drain, they effectively reversed it? And can India do the same? Welcome to the second layer. In the early 1990s, both China and India were very similar countries. Their GDP was very much similar. Their GDP per capita was also roughly the same. In fact, India had a slightly higher per capita GDP at that time. Both countries were poor countries and both faced the same problem of their brightest minds leaving the country to either go to US or Europe. In fact, for both India and China, over 90% of students who went abroad chose to never come back to their home country again. This was a huge problem because both these governments invested a lot of money in their education. So when an engineer trained in India on Indian taxpayers' money would go to work in US would effectively get all the benefits without spending a single dollar on training this engineer. The funny thing is, in late 1990s, World Bank even proposed an exit tax on every IIT graduate leaving India, estimating that the Indian government could earn $1 billion a year from it. Now, in spite of a big brain drain problem, both India and China were still happy with this arrangement. Why is that the case? Because their citizens were sending in US dollars for abroad, which was much needed for buying oil and other imports. Between 1978 and 2008, 10.6 lakh Chinese went to study abroad, but only 2,75,000 of them actually returned back. This meant for every 4 Chinese that went abroad, only 1 returned. Rest never came back. Now here, China changes its strategy. China realizes something. These Chinese who are going abroad, these are the best brains of the country. They are not just scientists, they are a national asset and should be treated as such. For example, oil is a national asset. Water is a national asset. Rare earth minerals are a national asset. Then talent should also be a national asset. China realized even though these best brains are sending in US dollars from abroad, they are generating far more wealth for the Western countries. So what does China do? China launches Thousands Talent Plan or TTP. Now this plan was so brilliant that before telling you about this program, let me tell you the results of this program. Remember, over 90% of citizens who went abroad chose to stay abroad, or in other words, only 10% of those citizens returned. Well, today, 80% of Chinese nationals come back to work in China, while for India, only 13% come back. China has solved its brain drain problem, but India is still making very little progress. Why? Under Thousands Talent Plan, now if you are a Chinese talent doing high quality research work in let's say US and you decide to return back to China, the Chinese government will give you a signing bonus as high as 1 million yuan or roughly 1.3 crore rupees. You will also be given a salary which is comparable to what you were earning in US. So taking care of money is step 1 of Thousands Talent Plan. Because as an individual, everyone wants to look after themselves and their family, and this is fair. Here I will give you example of ISRO in India. ISRO is one of the most premium research institutions in India, but only 2% of ISRO is made up of IITians. Its former chief S. Somnath revealed that in a recruitment drive that as soon as ISRO shared their salary structure, 60% of the IITians walked away after hearing that. So, a premium place like ISRO is not able to even compete with India's private sector. What hope is there for competing with the Indians abroad? But let's move a step away from money. Step 2 of Thousandth Talent Plan is taking care beyond money. Chinese scientists who returned are immediately given permanent positions in a top university. This is very unlike India, where you first have to apply for a fellowship, which is effectively a contract for 5 years, or at best get hired in probation in top colleges, which last for 3 to 5 years. Next is the Chinese scientist who wants to come back also gets 3 to 5 million yuan as research grants. The important part is this research grant is made available to him or her even before they land in China. But in India, even after the research grant is sanctioned, it can be up to 8 to 12 months before you get access to that money. Like, forget research grants here, simple stipends are regularly delayed for up to 12 months. Now, if I'm a scientist working in MIT and then I choose to come back to my home country, but if my home country does not have the proper research facilities, then what will I do by coming back here? So I not only need the financial incentives to come back, I also need the research infrastructure to properly deploy my talents. This is where India absolutely falls through the cracks. If you want to buy a scientific equipment, you can do so freely if the cost is less than 2 lakh rupees. But again, it really is. From 2 lakhs to 25 lakhs, the order first needs to go through purchase committee. Now above 25 lakhs, it's mandatory to float a tender for the purchase. Then again, there are other complex rules of preferring make in India suppliers. But rarely any scientific chemical is actually fully made in India. So in that case, the suppliers are divided into class 1, class 2 and non-local suppliers, depending upon which they are given a preferential treatment. Oh, and also to promote make in India, importing anything from abroad is actually banned unless it's one of these items, because these items are actually not available in India. Do you now understand how difficult and cumbersome it is to do research in India? We're expecting our best brains to navigate these bunch of papers and bunch of rules to get their preferred research equipment. A researcher lost several months trying to procure a minus 80 degrees Celsius deep freezer while his biological samples degraded and the data was lost. And here I understand all these rules and regulations are designed to prevent financial frauds. But globally, most countries have realized that research needs speed. So what they do? They operate on trust and post-audit systems, which means a researcher is trusted with the purchase first and then an audit can be performed on his purchase if something appears fishy. But in India, in the name of preventing financial frauds, we focus on so much pre-approval that it leads to delays in research. It adds to bureaucratic red tape. See, at the core of it, we have to recognize that the delays in financial research cost a lot more than few financial frauds that may happen by the brightest minds of this country. I have a personal experience to share here. Back in 2015-2016, I was doing a material science project on making some experimental transistors. And for making those transistors, the lab in my college imported a CVD machine, or a chemical vapor deposition machine. Now, a CVD machine can basically deposit very thin films as small as 1 atom thick of a material over some another material. Now, this machine was stuck in customs for 6 months. Did I have 6 months? No. So what did I do? This was one of the many things that turned me away from research work in India and compelled me to look for conventional career options such as finance, which I later did. Now let's talk about infrastructure. In China, a government spends 2.56% of its GDP on R&D, whereas India spends just 0.64%. But the story gets even more dark. Before 2008, there were 7 IITs. In 2009, this number was increased to 15. And then in 2016, this was further increased to 23. Now this is the audit report by CAG and it exposes a terrifying reality. At IIT Hyderabad, Phase 1 construction was delayed by 56 months. This is 5 years, where students did not have access to proper labs. At IIT Mandi, only 35% of the allotted land was available for development because the rest was stuck in forest clearance disputes. At IIT Bhubaneswar, they built hostels that violated fire safety norms and had to dismantle parts of them later. Now think about this. Can a world-class scientist work in facilities like this? And here I'm talking about the most premium institutes of the country. And even if a world-class scientist agrees to work here because of patriotism, can the infrastructure here, along with the red tape which leads to long delays as we saw, allow him or her to work at his or her full potential? I don't think so. Look at the 100 most polluted cities of the world. Top 50 are Indian cities. How are we even supposed to expect anyone to come back and contribute here versus staying in US or Europe? See, here's the thing. Talent always follows opportunity and not some patriotic sentiment. But here is a brighter side. Despite of this brain drain in the last few decades, few of the Indians did come back and they did build in India. For example, Sachin Bansal and Vinny Bansal. Both went to work for Amazon in US, then came back in India and started Flipkart on the same business model. Kunal Bahl worked in Microsoft USA before starting Snapdeal in India. And then we have Zepto founders, we have Healthcart founders, and we have countless others. The kind of contributions these US returnees are making to India's GDP is disproportionately high. And this has happened despite a highly fragile ecosystem. Imagine what would happen if we are able to reduce corruption and red tape. This is why China has CATL, the company which dominates the world's EV batteries. Then China has DJI, the company that rules the drone market. Both of these companies were built by people who returned to China after working in US companies. Now on to solutions. First of all, if a citizen of our country is ready to live in a country 10,000 kilometers away with a culture totally different to ours, even with so much visa uncertainty these days, and still decide to not come back and contribute to India's economy, the fault here lies with us in not making the offer attractive enough. China has conquered brain drain. China has realized that patriotism alone is not sufficient to attract talent. You need structural reforms. A Chinese does not have to choose between his career and his quality of life. When he comes back, he has a world-class infrastructure to rely on. He does not have to face red tape. He has good air to breathe. In short term, the easiest thing is to do completely away with red tape. Trust the scientist to make the purchase and not some babus in the approval committee. Second is, put the capital to the right use. Recently, Piyush Goyal, our minister, remarked, while India is busy building food and hyperlocal delivery apps, China is building AI and deep tech. While he's not wrong here, let me tell you something else. India has planned to spend 10,372 crores on building a compute of 10,000 GPUs. Now this is a very good news. But the news I'm about to tell you right now, take this however you want. India transferred 10,000 rupees each to 75 lakh women just ahead of Bihar elections, costing 7,500 crore of taxpayer money. The point is, the priority needs to change. The long-term solution is reward and respect talent. Long-term solution is to build infrastructure, to build a nest for our talents to come back to. When a Chinese national returns from US, he still gets world-class infrastructure when he returns to China. What does an Indian get? Air pollution, sound pollution, and adulterated food. If this video made sense to you, hit the like button. Do check out more videos from this channel. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you.